You have been listening to the sound of a modal jazz blues featuring Chordal harmony in the style of McCoy Tyner. And I'm sure you've heard this sound on records like Kind of Blue by Miles Davis and Maiden Voyage by Herbie Hancock. Hello, I'm Mike Hayes and welcome to Jazz Guitar Chord-melody Part 60. In today's video, we'll be studying that type of quartal chord voicing and how to adapt it to the guitar fingerboard. Let's begin by identifying which modes we'll be playing and where we'll be playing them. Our model for this session will be a 12-bar blues in C minor. Here's the chord progression we'll be working with, and now we'll have a look at what modes we'll be playing and where we'll be playing them. From bars 1 to 4, we'll be playing C Dorian mode. From bars 5 to 6, we'll be playing F Dorian. Bars 7 to 8, we'll be playing C Dorian. In bar 9, we'll be playing A flat Mixolydian. In bar 10, we'll be playing G Mixolydian. In bars 11 and 12, we'll be playing C Dorian. In order to find the notes in the C Dorian mode, all we have to do is remember that C Dorian is the second mode of the key of B flat. Therefore, the notes in C Dorian will be C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat, C. Let's get started by playing this C Dorian mode on the first string of the guitar. Here we go. Next we're going to play a little musical motif. That really is like a little melodic cell, a set of notes that is played over and over throughout the piece of music. It's developed into different rhythmic patterns and different pitch levels, but it's the original idea that we're working on for a start, and then you'll see that we'll move it throughout the piece of music so that there's something familiar for the listener to hear. So instead of just playing a C Dorian mode, what we're doing is creating a little melody out of the notes of the C Dorian mode. Now the first motif that I'm going to play has the following notes: C, D, B flat, C. And this is the motif that I'll be playing over bars 1 and 2. I'll be repeating that motif in bars 3 and 4, and then it will return in bars 7 and 8. At the moment, I'm going to leave the other bars open, so I won't be playing anything in there, just so you can hear the original idea. Here we go. Our next project will be to harmonise that motif. I'm going to use those notes that we just played, C, D, B flat, C. I'm going to use that as the highest note in the chord. Now we'll be creating a triad, so we're looking for two other notes. and we'll be creating a quartal triad. The notes that I'm playing underneath this melody note need to be a fourth away. How I'm going to do this is I'm taking the top note, the first note, C, and I'm going to work out what note would I play underneath that C. In this session, we're working in the opposite direction than we did in our previous lesson. In lesson 59, we used the bottom note as the root note of the chord. However, in this session, we're approaching it a different way. We're looking at how to create a chordal harmony for a given melody. Now, I hope you're sitting down when you're listening to this next part of the session, because it can be quite a puzzling type of thing. But I can tell you it actually really does work, and we cover this type of thing in great detail in future sessions when we're really dealing with intervals. What I'm just going to tell you is about inverting intervals. When you invert an interval, you subtract the number away from 9, and you will get the new interval. In other words, if I'm wanting to find out what happens when I invert a fifth, we take the number 5 away from the number 9. So when I invert a fifth, when I turn an interval of a fifth upside down, it becomes a fourth. This is true with all the intervals. For example, if I inverted a second, it becomes a seventh. That's taking 2 away from 9. And one more example, if I inverted a third, it becomes a sixth. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, I need to work out what is going to be a fourth below the melody note. In other words, I have a C melody note here in our motif, and I need to know which note will I put underneath that C that will give me the interval of a fourth. And remember, when we're talking about intervals, we're measuring from the lowest note to the highest note. So I ask myself, what is a fifth of C? And of course, that's G. And going by the principle that I just explained, if we invert that interval, in other words, I now have the interval of a fifth, the G is a fifth away from C. If I put that G underneath the C, I now will have the interval of a fourth. G, A, B, C. I'm now measuring from the G up to the C. To complete our chordal triad harmonization, I need to find out a note that's a fourth below G. So again, I work out what's a fifth away from G. Well, that's D. G, A, B, C, D. Now I get that D and I tuck it underneath the G. And now if I measure from the bottom up, D to G, I have my interval of a fourth, D, E, F, G. I'm going to do this with all the notes in our motif, and when you're ready, we'll play the chordal triad harmonization of our motif. Here goes. The next step will be to learn the notes in the F Dorian mode. Again, that's really quite simple because F Dorian is the second mode in the key of E flat. Therefore, the notes in F Dorian will be F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, F. Let's practice the F Dorian mode on the first string of the guitar. Here we go. Back to the 12-bar blues and that motif that we worked out to play over the C minor chord. We're now going to move that motif up to the F minor chord. So in other words, our first note, instead of being C, we're going to move it up to the pitch of F. Therefore, our motif now for the F minor will be F, G, E flat, F. When you're ready, let's have a listen to the C minor motif played in bars 1 and 2. It's repeated again in bars 3 and 4. In bars 5 and 6, we have our new F minor motif. Then in bars 7 and 8, we're back to the original C minor motif. Here we go. Next we're going to harmonise the F Dorian motif, and we'll be using the same process that we did for the C minor. Let's take a look at the motif. The first note in the F Dorian motif is F, so I'm looking for the fifth of F, which is C, and then I place that C below the melody note. And then we have the interval of a fourth from the C to the F. And now to find the next harmony note, I'm looking for the fifth of C, which is G. And once again, I'm going to place this harmony note underneath the C. And there's our first quartal triad harmonising the F melody note. Okay, so it's time to review. Let's have a listen to our blues now with both the C Dorian and the F Dorian motifs harmonised. Before we go any further, it would be a good idea to have a listen to the sound of and practice the chord shapes of the triadic chordal harmonization of both the C Dorian mode and the F Dorian mode. Let's start with the C Dorian mode. And now it's time for the F Dorian chordal triads. If you have a look at the shapes as you play through these scale patterns, you'll recognise where we got the shapes for the early harmonisation of the motifs. Now it's time to have a listen to a complete version of our 12-bar blues in C minor. In bar 9, I'm using a chordal harmonisation of the B flat note, and when you hear this chord played against the A flat, it creates the sound of an A flat 13. The G note, the last note in bar 9, I've made a slight modification here. I've created a chordal harmonisation, but according to our original analysis, this should be a G mixolydian chord. And what I've done here, just for sound, instead of having an A note as the lowest note in the chord, I've used an A flat, only because I wanted to create the sound of a G7 flat 9. So as you can see, at any stage of the process, it's quite flexible. You can go through and just slightly modify some of the notes in your chordal harmonization to create the type of harmony that you're hearing. In bars 11 and 12, it's the return of the original motif with a slight change in the interval. The melody notes in bar 11 are C to E flat this time rather than C to D. The rest of the motif remains the same, B flat to C. And the last note in bar 12, the G, I'm not using a chordal harmonization for this G. I simply used a G augmented triad. Let's have a listen. Well, there you go, folks. That's our modal blues for this session. I do hope you found something of interest here. Don't forget, if you have any questions or comments, to pop them in the comments section below this video. And I'll look forward to catching up with you again next time. Bye for now.